Okay. I think that's enough of that. Happy
Yes.
birthday, Kayla.
Thank you.
I
That
thought that was an appropriate way to start the
That
show
was
off.
that was pretty cute. That was pretty cute.
So here we are. It's Tuesday again.
It's Tuesday, the day. Can you hear me? Is my mic on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Am I like in your head?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
in my
cool. Hey, no. What was I gonna say? Yes, yesterday was my birthday, and thank you, Mike, for that little birthday tribute.
You're welcome. Of course. So I figure since we got a little delayed, might as well skip the weekly roundup.
Okay. Although
straight to our-
it does bear saying Game of Thrones is coming back.
Well, yeah, I mean, we might as well just give you the highlights.
That's
Game
the
of
most
Thrones is
important
coming
thing.
only real highlight there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some drugs.
Let's talk about drugs.
So you know I have ADHD, right,
Uh-huh.
Kayla?
Yes.
So whenever I see something on the internet
Mm-hmm.
that relates to how our brains work
Yes.
and how our brain and our nervous system makes connections, I like to read it.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I found something that I thought was pretty funny, which relates
And
to
you stopped
a lot
all
of things.
conversation.
And I
remember.
did stop all conversation for this because I had to read it and focus. But essentially, some scientist had the idea to put a subject on LSD
Mm-hmm.
and scan his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote that came out of that from the scientist, I'll read it to you.
Yes.
In many ways, the brain in the LSD state resembles the state of our brains, the state our brains were in when we were infants, free and unconstrained. This also makes sense when we consider the hyper-emotional and imaginative nature of an infant's mind. I feel like this explains a lot about the era where LSD was most prevalent,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and also Steve Jobs.
Why Steve Jobs,
He
Mike?
did a bunch of LSD. You didn't know that?
No.
I'm pretty sure that's like a fact. Like Steve Jobs, LSD,
Oh, well,
like hand in hand.
all the reading I do on Steve Jobs.
But I found this to be extremely interesting. Essentially, the drug kind of the way our brain works is that our brain compartmentalizes itself
Mm-hmm.
and puts certain subjects and certain topics into one area of the brain.
Yeah.
And what LSD does is it ununifies all of it.
So like how
It's all just like free flowing throughout the brain.
I think I get it. I think so. Like how, like when you see a brand new born baby and their eyes are just open, and they're just looking around, and they're like, "What?" So like they're looking,
yes.
they're like looking at a light and
That is-
looking at a person. Like
That's
what?
exactly
What's the difference between you two?
that's
Like
exactly what happens essentially.
I don't want that.
I'm not all right. I should probably put this out there. I'm not advocating for LSD.
No.
However, I find this to be extremely interesting because I think it explains a lot about why the drug is so prevalent in certain times and periods of history.
So it was most prevalent what during the Vietnam era?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's
60s, 70s.
lots of conflict, lots of that word
Compartmentalizing.
of society and all that. And yeah, I could probably see why people wanted to just not like literally like LSD. I think is like let's do LSD is like synonymous with hey guys, let's just not like
Let's just not do that.
no, like let's just exist for a minute, like and
So-
not know what our brain is doing.
This is also going to lead into another article that I found yesterday.
Yeah, this is where
Which
we
I
stop
find-
talking about drugs and we start talking about actual, real, interesting topics for discussion.
All right. Well, I thought this was pretty interesting topic.
Oh no, LSD. This is interesting, but like if you don't know what we're about to talk about, it sounds like we're just sitting here talking about drugs.
Yeah, true. So I wanted to lead that into this other article titled, title is meh. It was a Vice article about how evidence shows that in basically every single war in history, soldiers have been hopped up on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
which also makes a lot of sense to me. Because, I mean, I'll just throw the examples out there. In the article, it references a book written by a scientist, and I failed to put that in my outline.
Because we're very professional.
Yes, because I'm so professional. However, they outline, during the Civil War, Americans from the North and the South used morphine excessively. Vikings would eat mushrooms that would bring their brains into a mental state where they could do outrageous things.
They get like
and not care.
animalistic. I
Yes,
think. Yeah,
yeah.
like
They would basically go into like a primal mode.
Yeah.
The
like
Nazi
they don't
regime,
even care that somebody had a spear to their throat. They're like, anyway, like
the Nazi regime, while publicly denounced all use of drugs in their regime, it was extremely common for them to use speed,
hmm
which also explains a lot about the horrific things that they were doing
yeah.
and how they were able to handle
And
it.
how they were like especially among the Hitler youth,
Mhm.
they were already crazy vicious. Like if you ever talk to a World War II veteran, and they had come in contact with them, they said that like they were the most ferocious fighters, and they were like 14, and then it's like, and they were also on speed on top of it. So it was like fighting the Tasmanian devil. They said like
I can't imagine that. And all right, so I know you know a lot about this last one, which is why I kind of wanted to bring it up to get your point of view, because I know that you have a lot of people in your family that have gone to war in the past 5 to 10 years,
yeah.
gone overseas. So at the end of the report, it kind of said, while drugs like speed and mushrooms and morphine aren't used or publicly used
Yeah.
in not only society but in the military
Yeah, like
anymore.
the military isn't like passing them out.
Like American soldiers commonly use Adderall
Mm.
and pre-workout to stay awake for their long shifts and to be able to concentrate for long periods of time.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, I've never been to war, but like I've heard in like places like Afghanistan and Iraq, and that whole the whole conflict over there. What people do, like especially like let's say you're on a guard post and you're up in a tower, and your job is to stand there, look out, have a gun ready, but also look out for enemy fire, any like RPGs type thing. Just be ready. And a lot of nights, nothing ever comes,
Mhm.
but you still have to be
But you
awake
still
and
have
ready.
to be awake.
So they take Adderall, and like usually like Adderall isn't, you can't really compare Adderall to speed or mushrooms.
No,
Like
not really.
yeah, but like it will kind of screw them. Like the next day they're very like shot and just like
Mhm. Mhm.
and pre-workout is definitely big over there. I wouldn't say that they use it like a drug. Like I say they use it like coffee almost.
I mean,
Like-
have you ever taken pre-workout?
Yeah,
I
you gotta.
I can't take pre-workout.
I could imagine that.
I can't. I just can't. So, however, I know one of our mutual friends that uses it a lot, Dan.
Yes.
He uses it basically every day before he goes to the gym. And
Yeah.
I've seen what it does to him, and I've seen what it does to other of our friends.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being on that for long periods of time.
No,
That
they
must make people go insane.
they said that the best time, well, like no, like dude, if I take my inhaler, I'm already a little hyped up.
Yeah.
And then one time I took pre-workout on top of it. It was 3 hours after I was playing a Gaelic football game. It was 3 hours after, and I was in my house, like running around the kitchen like a 5-year-old. I was like moving furniture. Like, is this straight? Like, I just couldn't settle down. But my from what I've heard of people that have been over there in war, is that like
Obviously, you're
yeah.
going to do anything to
Yeah.
give yourself an edge over the enemy.
But like, so a lot of the times they had to like still to this day like kind of march off to where the battle was. Like you had to travel like about like 5 miles in a clip to get to wherever you had to fight or whatever. It's not like a battlefield or anything. It's just like the enemy has been found in this area. Blah blah blah. You guys have to go and travel this distance. So like, there already had to like you're kind of like, even though like you're already like a mix of nerves and like this is exciting but this is terrifying, blah 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 at the same time. So apparently like I've heard a few people, some people took it as they left, other people took pre-workout like halfway there, and then some just right as they were about to go just did. And they said like you were so good like on the days that like when you're fighting, you're like so good and you're like into it, like pre-workout, like it's just fueling you until the second a bullet like goes right past your face or like something collapses right next to you. Then you're like, woo, nope.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it doesn't matter what drug or anything
See,
you're taking.
this is where I can imagine that taking Adderall or things like Adderall would be extremely helpful,
Yeah.
because for me, what it does is essentially what I can imagine that happening in the situation like that
Yeah.
is that it makes it easier for the soldiers to go through basic training and go through the scenario that's happening at the moment
Yeah.
with them right now, and be able to remember what they learned
Mm-hmm.
in basic training and what their sergeants and their higher ups tell
Yeah.
them to do in certain situations, and it just basically clears their mind and says, okay, this happened, so I have to do this, and this, but if this goes wrong, I can do this or
Yeah.
this. Or, you know, it
They already
kind
have.
of blows my mind that this is something that you would never talk about outside of like a military family, which is why I kind of wanted to talk about it, because
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah. I know that like my brother-in-law was in Afghanistan. He never, I don't think he ever took Adderall, but
Mhm.
he did take. He would do pre-workout and stuff like that. But how you said like the thought process, like they already have that like just and
Drilled into them,
yeah,
but I'm
like-
sure it
yeah,
helps,
Yeah.
especially in situations where your life is on the line and
Yeah.
you're not necessarily thinking about
Yeah.
the process of elimination of things that you have to do. You're thinking about, oh wow, I almost just died there.
Another thing, even if it's not even like to give them the edge, but like different drugs that the army will give out for like your health. Like there's like malaria drugs. There's stuff for what's the one with sunburn? It's another Mela something.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, but
Melatonin helps you sleep, right?
no, I don't know.
I think
Anyway,
melatonin is what helps you
don't
sleep.
ask us these questions. But there's they give out a bunch of drugs like to help you with the elements and stuff. And there's one for like so that this like you don't get sun poisoning and like the sun
Mhm.
doesn't kill you because it's 114 degrees in the shade over there.
Yeah.
But all of, like everybody when you first get there, they're like all your higher ups like, okay, take the stuff we prescribe you, take all, don't forget to take your medicine. But then they would all wake up in the middle of the night with like crazy nightmares. They'd be like reaching for their weapons type thing.
Mhm.
So a bunch of them just said like my brother.
Screw it, let's not take
Yeah,
them.
exactly. Like my brother-in-law is pale as can be, and he was like, yeah, I never took those things. I was like, why? He was like, you got screwed up. Like,
Really?
yeah, and a bunch of the stuff that they are prescribed to take just screw you up in a bunch of ways. Sometimes like it can sterilize a man. It can
Jeez.
yeah. Like, and they have to get so many vaccines and stuff before they go that they can just have different, you don't know later in life what's going to happen. You could develop a different type of cancer. Just but it's just another example of how these guys and girls are really putting themselves on the line for
Yep.
America.
Now, to finish up, I want to bring up something that I would be interested in reading about.
Okay.
And
I'll see if I can write a book on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
please do, because I'd be very interested. I want to know I want to see if there's a correlation between the drugs that people do during war and the severity of their PTSD when they come back.
Right.
If there's a correlation between, whether they were doing certain prescribed drugs
Yeah.
or unprescribed drugs. I would be very interested to see if there is a correlation between the two.
Yeah. I can't even like make a guess on that.
Yeah.
You're right. I would imagine it would probably be hard to do for like
It would be extremely hard to do.
Yeah, for like
but
Civil War area and like earlier on because
Well,
I don't think they were
I don't think
recording.
they were recording PTSD back then.
Yeah, they had no idea.
So I think it
that
would be
really
more
is
of
like a more recent.
Yeah, it
discovery.
would be more of a like you'd have to start researching this now as opposed to later kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure someone's already on it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's probably books about it right now that we just don't know.
Yeah, that I just don't care about. So that's our first segment. Tuesday Talk. We'll be back in a bit. WICR. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I don't think they have Snapchat.
Friendster, MySpace.
Definitely MySpace. All right, we'll be back in a minute.